Hello, Awaken Beauties. Thank you for joining me. I am Cassandra, your organic beauty and CBD mentor. Welcome to the Awaken Beauty podcast, sponsored by evokebeauty.com. Girls, I am so excited to have you, Heather, join us today. Heather, are you present with us?
I'm here. Yes.
Wonderful. So before I get started, I wanted to share who Heather is and the power of who she really is. And so Heather Havenwood teaches, coaches, experts, and service providers current online marketing and sales strategies to close the right clients anytime they want. She is regarded as a top authority on digital marketing, sales coaching, and online publishing businesses strategies. Heather Ann has been named Top 50 Must Follow Women and Entrepreneurs by Huffington Post. She has also been named Chief Sexy Boss from her Amazon bestseller book, Sexy Boss: How Female Entrepreneurship is Changing the Rule Book and Beating the Big Boys on Others. And others call her the wizard behind the curtain. Ooh, it sounds mysterious. In 2006, she developed and grew an online information marketing publishing company from ground zero to over 1 million in sales, ladies, in less than 12 months. Then in 2010, she started and grew an online newsletter publishing company from 0 to 1 million in online sales without even having a product. Now that is power. In 2015, she did it again from 0 to, she grew a weight loss company from 0 back to 1.5 million in sales in just 18 months. Now, girlfriends, there are two sexy bosses sitting here, and I know those of you listening are just as sexy. I really want everyone to hear out, Heather, the power of your riveting story. I just want you to jump in and, I share in my own awakening story, there's these pivotal points in our life that change us forever. And I know that you have had these, looking amongst the many books you've read, the podcast company that you're growing, the sales that you've grown. We got to know your story. I really want to start there. So jump on in, girl.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it on your very first show.
Yes.
Like a boss, girl. I love it. And I'm really proud of you for doing this. This is really exciting. This is your very first show. So thank you for having me on as your guest.
You bet.
And part of my story is similar to like most women, right? Where you started out where you thought that you're supposed to go and the journey that we're supposed to be doing as women, which was for me was corporate America. And I was told a really bad idea where you work for the man, quote unquote, you make him money and he gives you a little bit. Right. And that's something I've tried to be breaking for the rest of my life because it is something that I've done over and over again where I, quote unquote, make money behind the curtain for a business owner, which happens to be a man. And then I only take a small percentage. And so one of the things that I have literally changed in my life in the last 24 months is that I'm done with that as a person, but I'm also done with that as a society. That 80% of the small businesses in America today are owned by men and run by women. And I'm just done with that. So one of my challenges to myself and to the world is I want to touch and help 100,000 women up to that to start and run their own companies. And, if they want to have a spouse and do that, that's fine. But honestly, I really prefer if they're running and owning that themselves, because that's the power is when they really get that confidence in themselves. They don't need a partner, that they can do it themselves. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, that is so, so incredible. So, you came to this last 24 months, like you are totally autonomous, and I think autonomy is a really strong word. I think control is something that I think media wants to use or copywriters want to use is you want to take back control. But I think really women, what they want, and tell me if you agree, is women really want to be autonomous. That means they want to choose what they want to choose when they want to do it. They want to use what they want to use. They want to, they want the purchasing power to do so. And so this kind of, call it ecosystem you are in, where
Yeah.
when you're in a man's ecosystem, tell me if you agree, like there's this pecking order. And women don't think that way. They shouldn't think that way. We don't think that way. There's not a pecking order. We want to service others. We want to have power by providing someone an ROI, a return on service, right? So for you kind of ran forward with this. Is there some point in your story that was so like, I will never go back to giving my power over to somebody else, or let's call it a man, or what have you?
Unfortunately, it's happened a couple of times, I think. I say that lightly. The first time was when in corporate America, right? Where I was basically the underdog. I was a female, I was 25, and everyone in my office was male over 40. And I wasn't even supposed to be hired. The guy made a bet against me. And he said, well, if you fail, you can be customer service because you're cute. And I ended up being there for 4 years and was number one in the country. And after I got what I call my pat on the head, even though I was waiting for a pink Cadillac because I was living in Fort Worth, and he was like, where's my pink Cadillac, people? Yeah. Instead, I got the boot. I got my pat on the head and I got the boot. And it was my first time of like what I call in competition with the big boys, right? I didn't understand it. It made no sense to me. I thought if I did well, then they would respect me. So it's been this challenge ever since then. It's like, I've been chasing this rabbit of trying to get quote unquote respect from men for a very long time in my own personal life. And it's really hit walls with me over and over and over again, because we are taught as a society, and I know people are going to balk at me in this and I don't care, but we are taught at an extremely young age that women serve men.
Yeah.
Period. All right. So if you saw it in your home, or if you saw it at school or whatever, we are taught to be behind men, to serve them, because we are actually taught that we're smarter than them and that they need us. And so women give their entire life over to them, and then they're like, well, I did it for the kids or whatever. 30 years later, they're now 50 years old and they're like, what the heck, right?
Yeah, there went my life.
They were my life. And I think that one of the challenges, I did the same thing multiple different ways in my own way. Okay. And I realized that is bullshit. And part of me being on your show, The Awaken Beauty, it's being the awakened woman and saying no, right? When I feel for myself, it's time that women choose partners because they choose them as a partner. They choose them because they love them, adore them, that they respect them, and then that women are cherished, not just because, they can support me, and that's the only thing I want. Amen. 75% of women today still marry out of financial security, which I agree with, by the way. I'm not saying you should go marry a poor guy because you like them. Because men's job is to provide. There's an inept niece to them that they need to do that, so it makes them feel confident who they are. Yep. Right. So I'm not saying all women need to be the breadwinners. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that women need to have their own money so that they feel confident in who they are. It's a very big difference.
Yeah, I really, I love that, because I think that this message could easily, especially in a time where we're seeing like the huge Me Too movement, it can easily slip down into, somewhat of a political rant, or, it's some of these different things, but really it goes back to that autonomy, right? It's being able to be autonomous in the decisions you make, and be supported by your partner, and that he's your biggest cheerleader, and that you appreciate him for who he is. And I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that women and men have different roles, and it's okay to own those, but it behooves us as a woman to mindfully, spiritually, in our hearts, to put ourselves underneath someone out of insecurity, or just because that's the role that we think we're supposed to fill. And so what I hear you saying, like being an awakened beauty, is awakening to that, what your superpowers are, what your gifts are, and really owning that and running full-fledged with that,
Yeah. I mean, the Me Too movement was a crack in what I call a very hard egg, you know?
Right.
But where I think it's next, the next phase is more of a hashtag, it's our time.
Yep.
Hashtag, it's your time.
Yep.
Hashtag, it's my time. It's a very different conversation.
Yep.
What I've realized in the last couple of months, though, as I've, gone on my own journey around this and been saying that, I've been saying it if you're on my Facebook page, you'll see this, but very public about it's time for women to step up. And I've been sharing a little bit of my stories about how I've been mistreated by men. And it's fascinating because some people are like, go get them, girl, whatever. It's not a bashing. It is here's what's happened. And this has happened a lot. And I'm just done. It's not okay anymore. And I'm not trying to go back and do retribution of like, bad boy. I'm more like, that happened and it's not okay anymore. I'm not going to settle for that. I accept that's what happened. I don't settle for that in my life. It's a very big distinction that one of my mentors said to me. He's like, Heather, you can accept that this happened in your life and it could be a really bad situation, right? However, doesn't mean you have to settle for it.
Yep.
There's a difference. There's like, I accept you, my ex was an abuser. I accept you as an abuser, but I don't settle for that. Very big difference. Took my company. He did all kinds of certain things. I forgive him and I accept that's what happened. And I accept that in my life, but I don't settle for that. Doesn't mean that I don't sue him. Doesn't mean that I don't allow myself to go, no, that is not okay.
Yep.
I forgive you. I release it. I accept it. And it's not okay. Big difference. And I think one of the challenges of women we're told is like, let it go. At least for me, I was told, let it go, Heather. Just let it go. In the last 6 months, I've had a man come up to me who's very big in the internet marketing space said to me, quote, Heather, you help women. Quote, Heather, you help women entrepreneurs. There's no value in that. Period.
Wow.
That was in the last 6 months, not 1950.
Right.
That was 2018.
Right.
People.
Archaic.
Right. And it's like, I just didn't know what to say to that. In fact, I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. I smiled and was like, wow, there's nothing to say to that because he just spoke his truth and I can accept that's his truth, but I don't have to settle for that.
Right.
I'm like, okay, thank you I was almost going to say thank you. Thank you so much for sharing with me your truth because I know you're a little toasty right now. And so that just came out of your mouth and you're probably thinking, what did I just say? But there's truth in that. Yeah. And what I realized in that moment was that that is a lot of men's view. They're like, oh, you women have little women like groups and stuff. You just go ahead and do that. You have church Bible study. Right. You have little women entrepreneur. It's just cute. That's just okay, honey. That's just cute. Right. But don't come play in my pool. Right. No. You're not allowed to play in my pool. Right. You can't take money away from us. And that's where they get angry and pissed. And that's what I did when I was 25 years old. I was in corporate America. Yep. And I was the number one in the country. Yep. And my own boss, who was a woman, quote, said to me, I don't think you deserve it. How do you mean I can't deserve it? I have a sales code and no one sold for me. I'm the only one that could put sales in the sales code. Like, how can you even say that? Yeah. But the fact that I was 25, the average was 40, I didn't fit the mold. Right. So they're all great as long as you look pretty and cute, right? Right. Right. But the moment you actually start playing in their world, it's a different story. And even though I have a lot of men in my life who say, I really want you to succeed and I want you to be bold and I want you to go out there, I know they're sincere. But there's a lot of men out there that are like, oh, that's cute and all, but don't come play in our pool. Right. Right. So that's why I created Sexy Boss and Like a Boss, because it really is about a different mindset. If women are actually going to win today, they have to have a whole new mindset. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, your story is so riveting and it's so powerful. And you even just telling your story, right? There's a frequency and there's an essence that comes out of someone when they tell their story. And it only ignites another woman to say, yeah, me too. And here's my story. So that one voice gets louder. And that's how I see you carrying out your message to this 100,000 women, is by sharing your story. And really that's the power, even as it is powerful enough.
And, I can attribute to your story where you, like I, have this vision. And I said, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be a millionaire. Well, I probably made $1 million by the time I was 30. I just didn't see it as $1 million in my, bank per se, because I kept on reinvesting in my business. And I kept like trying to find men. Okay, this isn't a bashing men, but this is how the belief sets come in as young girls, right? I kept trying to find men like I could attach to, or that maybe I could partner or could help me, because I didn't think I had the power to do it myself, right? So like your story, we as women, we give our power away. Okay, so your pool is saying, this is my power ring. This is my ownership. And what I hear you saying is, we're going to play in our own pools now. Come to the pool party, ladies, because it's time to throw the balls in the air and have a blast and enjoy the ride up. We talk about the glass ceiling, and you're starting to grow this pool of women in the podcasting industry, right?
Yes.
How I found you. And let me tell you, Heather, this is my personal story with you. I was about to start blow drying my hair on a Sunday afternoon, much like today. And it's my wash day on Sundays as a hairdresser, once a week. And I see this phone call from Texas, and we're always all spammed on calls, right? And I'm like, but this is a Sunday, like something's up. So I answer, and you're like, hey, Cassandra, this is Heather. Like, just asking, like, where are you at? Are you going to be in the course? Are you going to come join our course? And like every marketing lover, I'm on every podcast and every sign up. I signed up somewhere for you, girl. And I just finished another podcast course, which I didn't get anything done on it. It was so overwhelming. It just, more information does not mean you're going to get something done, right?
Right.
So you call me up, and I'm like, oh my God, like this woman's like kind of bugging me. I'm like, yeah, I'll give you my money. Like, what's going on? But I'm like, this is the epitome of me, really. I was like, she likes to get shit done. I'm like, this may be the woman to help me get shit done and get this podcast into fruition. So you're helping women. I signed up. I've gone through this course of yours, and you really, you handed out bite size. You set up people for success. And what's different about you, Heather, is that you really applaud the person that you're teaching, educating, coming along. And that's very different than a course mentality. Society right now is throwing out all these courses, think we can make all this money. Mm-hmm. You created a small group of people, and you walk them through it, and you connect with them on a personal level to build them up. So I thank you for that. But where do you want to, you talk about, Sexy Boss is all about empowering women by redefining how the rules of business and money apply to them. First of all, women need to understand economics. I'm really, really passionate about that just as much as you are. What about podcasting is so powerful for you, and so powerful when you connect that to women?
So there's a couple things. One, the number one thing about podcasting, first of all, thank you for the kudos.
Yeah. Thanks for calling me.
And I did that on purpose to like totally mess you up on your blow drying that day. I think one of the number one things about podcasting that people don't understand is it's another level playing field happening again. So back in the day when blogs were coming out and websites were coming out, that was the big conversation of like, things are leveling out now, that anybody can find you online and stuff like that. And then it was social media. And now really the next level, that is podcasting, because think of the artists right now. Let's think of the artist industry. The artist industry is very fragmented, which is really great for the solo artist. So that means a solo artist can create something and let the people say they like it, and they connect with them on Spotify and Pandora or wherever, and YouTube, and they can create in their home studio this amazing song, and then millions of people come to them, and then the record artist is like, oh, the record company's like, oh my God, these guys are awesome, right? We will then bring you in. But now they have more power, because they're like, well, we have the content and we have the audience. What are you going to do for me? So it's a very flip of the switch. It used to be in the, let's call it reporting world, the news cycle, the education world. It was, the news stations and the TV stations, right? Where if I wanted to talk about politics, I had to go and pretty much apply myself to CNN or Fox News or whichever and say, I'm now political whatever, and I had to go find my way through. If I wanted to be a Rush Limbaugh or Hannity or someone like that, or become on the radio, there was always gatekeepers. And now with podcasting, you can literally create a podcast, and the media companies in 2018 really started to see podcasting as a level playing field. So there was never before 2018, if you watch a CNN or Fox News or whatever your choice is, MSNBC, that they would ever have a guest on there that had the lower third of like Heather Havenwood podcast, or they would like podcast or right. But now it's like, I see it all the time. I see experts, all of a sudden their expertise comes from the fact that they started a podcast in their basement or in their home studio, and they're now on like CNN and Fox News as a contributor. Yeah. Because they have a podcast, just like a radio show. It's that level. And so if you want to have your message out, it's powerful. The other thing is, you talk about cannabis and you're talking about education cannabis. I mean, there's a whole issue going on right now, as you know, in the Fed world, right? Mm-hmm. Even really CNN, Fox News, NBC, they can't really talk about it too much. They're under major regulations. They can't freely talk necessarily about it. But as a podcaster, you can. Right. You can talk about hemp and CBD and cannabis, and you can say the word weed and, all these things. You can do all of that. Elon Musk just got in trouble because he smoked marijuana on Joe Rogan, which I found interesting, because the only reason he got in trouble really was because he's a CEO of a company that's on Wall Street. Right. Yeah. And New York, it doesn't have those laws right now. He was sitting in California. I mean, it was on a podcast, right? I think it's interesting. He got in trouble and blah, 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 blah. My point is that these rules are being broken, and Wall Street and Hollywood can't control them. And the reason why they can't control them is because we have a voice. And that's the power of podcasting.
Leveling the playing field.
Yeah.
That is the takeaway for me. And, we talk popcorn moment. I tell Heather, like, I want everybody to walk away with a popcorn. She's like, what?
You should start saying that, because it's cute, right? Yeah. I didn't understand what it was. You kept saying it. I had to go, I'm sorry, what are you talking about?
Takeaway. Your popcorn is your takeaway. But you talk about, interruption economies, right?
Yeah.
And, the Googles, the Apples, there's kind of three big economies, and cannabis is actually the third largest growing economy in the world, globally. And that is why you're seeing so many cannabis podcasts coming up, because we can't market on Facebook. We can't really do too much SEO on the internet. Quite frankly, I don't want to, because they're going to come search you out, come to my, organic salon and try to fish out all my CBD. It's happening. So, you kind of got to be PQ, but you have a freedom of having a free voice on a podcast. Whether you're talking about cannabis, you're talking about mushrooms or adaptogens or whatever you want to talk about, it's your show, it's your deal. And it's your story. And that's really powerful of, whatever that story is somebody has to bring. So, being a sexy boss, Heather, is, I always think about the golden rules. So we talk about economic, the golden rules of the economy. There's fundamental things that global, economic policy, political policy, all these different systems that the world runs on. And you're an interruption. And being a part of the podcast and growing podcasters is an interruption economy. I truly believe that. It's how people fund them. It's how people sponsor them. It's really, like you said, the tables have turned, because now they are coming out to you, to me, to us. And, just like the organic movement went to Amy's Organics and said, if we can't beat you, we're going to join you. And we're going to buy you. You do you, right? but we're just going to fund you, and you can kind of do what you want to do, but you're going to come under our umbrella. Like, that's the power of what you're creating, is people then come to you and say, I'm going to do me, but if you want to participate me, you play in my pool.
Right. And that's what's happening with women. It's like, I was at a mastermind last week, and what was interesting about that mastermind was I was one of like 2 women in the whole room. And I thought it interesting because I left there really disheartened. There was about 80 guys in there. Some of them I know really well. And I was so trying to connect with them, and so trying to like, hey, let's do things together and whatever. And I was just getting this wall, even though I was invited to the mastermind, I belonged there. I just was like, God, it's still not happening. It's still, they don't want to connect or talk to me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so disheartening. Now, I mean, I had a great time. That 2 days later, I was at a conference, and I met some 2 amazing guys. We're going to be doing some business together, which I'm super, super excited about. And they were very different. They were very like, oh my God, I have daughters, and I've been married for 15 years. And like, they're just these totally different kinds of humans. And I just was like, oh my God, thank you so much for God for bringing people like this into my life. Because it's not like everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody. And it's not everybody. However, what I'm trying to state to people when I say things about it, it's like, it's not that I'm bashing. It's like, it's not okay anymore. Somebody says it's not okay anymore that I walk into a room of 80 men, they don't talk to me. It's not okay. I so want to scream, hey, it's not okay that you don't talk to me. Hello, I'm not trying to get a date. I'm trying to talk to you about business.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Or well, I hate this excuse. I hear it all the time. They're scared of you. What kind of bullshit is that? They're scared of you. No, they're not. That's an excuse.
Big excuse.
It's an excuse of like, I'm a human.
Yep.
So I think that men use this as an excuse. People use that as an excuse to say, well, don't be so fierce and I'm like, no, it's not okay. You step up. You step up and be a bigger human on the planet. They're going to have a conversation with a human being.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, I'm sorry that you can't speak your truth on what you believe about me, right? But I'm not going to apologize for who I am. I think that's basically what you're saying. And so, Heather, to kind of round this out, going back to the golden rules, how we got off into a tangent about economies, because we both love money. What are the 3 top golden rules that you could maybe speak into, that you could give women that are on this pursuit of gaining autonomy, or wanting to start a podcast, or wanting to rip out the best freaking email funnel they've ever written? I mean, what would you give them?
The biggest thing is, I would say, is focus on what causes clarity, not confusion. So the question I always ask myself is, does it feed my confusion or strengthen my clarity? And you can ask that about anything. That relationship you're in, right? The relationship you want to be in, the toxic friendship you're in. Does it feed my confusion, strengthen my clarity? What women try to do is we're fixers too. So we try to fix relationships. We're the mechanics of relationships. So we try to fix relationships. You know what I mean? We go back in. We're like, we're going to go back in. Like, no, sometimes you just like, does it feed your confusion or strengthen my clarity? That's like a big one. That's like the biggest one I really focus on. The other one is don't keep anyone in your life that's not part of your fan club. Right? So toxic people. Just recently, I was at an event party, really, about 3 weeks ago. And there was a hostess, and then the guy, he was kind of a host trainer. And the hostess, right when the event really started kicking, she literally went off the chain, started throwing stuff. She was mad at her husband. Her husband was there, and they started having a fight. She was throwing stuff. She was slamming doors. It was at a house, slamming stuff. People are kind of like ignoring it, which was fascinating to me, society-wise. And then she just wouldn't stop. And then finally the main host guy like yelled at her, like, this is not okay, you know? And then he told her to leave, and then she wouldn't leave. And then now she's calling a huge ruckus for all these people. Now here's what I found interesting about what I call the social economics. You know, there's what I call social programming, and also people will follow others, you know? Yep. So I was really fascinated by this. It was in the end of the evening, we're all kind of wrapping up. We're all sitting down this kind of quiet space and like trying to calm down. And she still keeps kind of interrupting, screaming and all this stuff. And what I found fascinating is that people were like giving her an excuse, like, well, I feel compassionate and I'm, you know, and I know she's going through a rough time with her husband or whatever. And what I wanted to say was, no, that is not okay. What happened is not okay. She could have an upset and remove herself. She killed off the entire evening for 35 other adults. She killed off the entire party because she was upset. That is not compassion. That's a toxic human being on the planet. Mm-hmm. She should have removed herself. What I found so fascinating is when I was said to somebody, that is not okay what she did, they were like, oh, well, I'm just compassionate. I'm like, no. That's a 2-year-old. That's a child. That's a child behavior. But I find it fascinating how people were so like compassionate and not willing to call her on her crap. You know, and that what I say to, so she's no longer my friend. She was not even a good friend. She was just in my circle, and I deleted her completely after everything. That's a toxic person. And so if we're not willing to say no and allow people just to, oh, well, make excuses again, it's like, no, it's not okay. So my golden rule is never let anyone in your life that's not part of your fan club.
Yeah.
And then the other last one that I use a lot, and again, this might sound harsh, but your life becomes pretty clean when you live by this way, which is never stay where your presence is not valued. This is a big one for women. How many times have you been in a group, organization, church, I don't know, whatever, and you're trying so hard to prove that you belong there, or prove that you're worthy, or prove that you want to be the next president? Like women do that. We're like, we'll work overtime, we'll give our time, we'll do whatever to prove that we're valuable. You know what your value is? Being there. Just being there. And I know for myself, it's like when I got present to that golden rule, or I call it sexy boss lesson, is that I got that there were so many places I was putting myself in, relationships included, that I really got that my presence in that relationship wasn't valued. So why am I even there? Mm-hmm. You know, and that was a harsh one for me to get. And every time I post that onto social media or Instagram, I get people like, oh my God, like when your presence isn't valued as just being a member of that, and you can add value or just stand in the space, if you're not valued, you'll never be valued. You've got to value yourself for other people to be valued first, you know? So when that person a few months ago said to me, 2018, about women and entrepreneurship, and he said, quote, you know, Heather, you help women entrepreneurs. There's no value here. He said that word valued, but that was interesting. The reason why that conversation was happening was because this particular person had been in the organization for 10 years, and I've really supported him and his causes. I've always shown up, you know, like a good little girl, showing up when I need to. He has like a private group. It happens like every month that's invite only. And I'm been invited, and for years. And I kept pointing out there was always men that were invited. And so that's what he was confronting me on. And he said, well, you help women entrepreneurs. That's not valuable to us. And it was so like, wow, you know, but thank you again. Thank you for sharing your value to me. Thank you for sharing that women entrepreneurships aren't valuable to you, you know? And I think it's an interesting piece to stand from, is that women have been trying so hard to be heard, when, you know what, some people just won't value you. And you know what, that's why when someone said to me a while ago, they go, well, why didn't you say something to him? I'm like, I'm not gonna change his mind.
No,
it's not my job to prove my value to him. I've been in his organization for 10 years. if he doesn't see my value, that's okay. You know, it's okay. It's all good. I can accept it. I don't have to settle for that. And now I get to choose if I want to continue to be in his organization or not, or whatever. So I think that that's the power, is that women try too hard to be part of the organization or be part of the men's club or be part. And believe me, I've done that. I mean, I think I shared with you or the group on Friday about, my very first mastermind I was in, it was all men, and I was asked 2 times to go get coffee and to serve them. We go get his coffee.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, what am I supposed to? I'm the man? Well, who do you work for? Who are the men you hear you work for? Or I've been said, whose assistant are you? Or, it's an automatic. And I think that's the piece that I'm trying to share people. This happens every day, and it's not okay. And the more that we come together as a power circle, and I have a mastermind called the Power Circle, the more we can stand up and have our own voice be heard.
Yeah. I think that's so powerful. And I think every woman listening right now wants to grab their sword and go. And it's not a sword against men. It's not a sword against corporate America. It's a sword against the lies that we believe, and really awakening and standing up for ourselves and being aware, being hyper aware of the frequency that we live in, how we invite other people into our lives and allow them to stay there and to impact us and to slowly warp us down, and so that we belittle ourselves and who we truly could be. So props to you for awakening yourself, to sharing stories that you did today. You've helped me awaken a little corner of myself to get my voice out, which I've been wanting to do for years. And I'm going to help and turn to another woman and help her do that same thing. That is the power of what we call a tribe, right? And it's becoming aware together. It's, this mastermind you talk about, I'm going to join you in this, and it's going to be very powerful. And these masterminds in the marketing industry that I think you and I can both attest to, they're like, $100,000 on the table. It's a lot of men. And it's like, there's all these little pods of marketing women, entrepreneurs, and phenomenal wealth creators and knowledge creators for other women that are jumping in now. And we're kind of on the subdue, but believe me, this is a storm that's taking power. And I want to thank you. And now I see why you are the wizard behind the curtain, because you brought your A game, girl.
Yeah, I really, and I'll leave with this. I was just watching a very emotional, very good speech by Dean Graziosi.
Yeah.
And just this last week, and I was watching it, he was talking about how power of masterminds and how powerful they are. And his whole thing's on masterminds. And he's actually creating a program and software with Tony Robbins. It was really a powerful presentation. So he's showing pictures of this mastermind he was a part of, and they went camping or something like in the mountains kind of thing to do team building. And he has these great stories, and he shows pictures of them. There's like 10 of them. And I know a lot of the guys in the picture, they're badasses, Lewis Howes and Brinson and some big names.
Yeah.
And I just sat there in the audience and was like, all men. All men.
Yep.
And he, of course, kind of said something like, oh, well, we could have had some woman in there. I think, it was kind of a man's thing. He kind of said it and just moved her, and which is fine. That's not a problem. But that was actually the moment. About 24 hours later, I posted onto Facebook and then said it to our group. Okay, I'm doing this. This is happening. So it's the Power Circle, Build Your Roar, which is roar, your roar, your build your empower, build your roar. And it's a power circle. And it's, it's just, again, it's not against anything. It's against the status quo. It's against not feeling valued. It's against having to be the person who's behind the scenes. It's now women stand up and have a voice. And I'm actually kind of in a weird way, and you did it too, but I do it too. I'm like, this is not embarrassing because men. In a way, it is. Mm-hmm. It is. It's not okay. It's not okay anymore that you guys have masterminds, you all connect, and you leave us out. It's not okay. Even when we're allowed in the room, you still leave us out of the game. You leave us off the field. And I'm just like, okay, it's not okay that you do that. We're going to build a freaking syndicate and a powerhouse syndicate. And you're going to notice us because you're like, oh, wow, you got a lot going on there. It's like, yeah. And you're not invited.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting dilemma that I know men are aware of it. Some are, but they also don't know what to do about it. So, and I get that, but it's just time women rose up. And so that's the point of the power circle.
Roar. I love it. So to end this note, roar, thank you for roaring with me today. Thank you for awakening, helping me awake parts of myself and helping the listeners today awaken parts of themselves that they didn't even know was coming. I can guarantee. So, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. Can I get my website real quick?
Yes, I would love for you. Give me your website, Facebook, anywhere everybody can follow you and love you up.
Well, I'm Heather Havenwood on all social media and heatherhavenwood.com. But the best place to get me is askheatherann.com. That's ask, A-S-K, Heather, ANN.com. And what that is my chat bot, askheatherann.com. And so you actually can communicate to me to my messenger and we can have a conversation. So that's askheatherann.com.
Love it. And she does chat bots. We're two lovely, sexy boss sisters that love bots. All right, girl. Well, thank you for joining the Awaken Beauty podcast. Listeners, I hope you got a little bit of your sexy back today. And make sure that you like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. And make sure if you love natural and organic products, head over to evoquebeauty.com, EVOQ beauty.com. And until next time, Awaken Beauty is thank you again.